Hi guys, welcome to PP for Dummies. My name is Uche and I
Like,
study maths, econ and politics.
my name is Daniel. I study maths, econ, and chemistry.
My name is Faiz. I study maths, further maths, economics, and philosophy.
So, welcome to our first episode of PP for Dummies. We're just a group of A-level students that, decided let's talk about philosophy, politics and economics together because we find it very interesting. So, why do we think these three subjects are so important? So, of course, we think that these three subjects are all, like very integral within society and they have multiple links together. And you may be asking, how exactly do these three subjects even link? So you can look at economics. So you can look at economics as the study of the distribution of wealth and resources and the mechanisms to actually distribute those things. And you can look at politics as the distribution of power slash authority and the mechanisms to distribute those things as well. Whereas philosophy links those two together by as this looks into the methodologies that economists and political scientists use to actually determine how to distribute these things. And this is clearly a very important thing within society. And to go into a brief introduction as to what this podcast will entail, we will have like a rota of different economic, political, philosophical topics that we will discuss each episode. So this first episode we'll be talking about an economic issue, whereas the next episode could be a philosophical or political issue, and of course there's going to be multiple links between each three subjects, and maybe in the future we may invite professionals in certain fields to talk about issues as well. So let's get right into the first episode. Let's look at the heart of economics. So, Faiz, could you tell me a bit about the economic problem?
Sure, I can do that. Again, guys, welcome to our podcast. So the core of economics is seen to be like the economic problem, and the economic problem is what economists like. At the end of the day, what we're trying to solve. So the question we have then is, what is the economic problem? So my understanding of the economic problem is it's a clash between the limited resources we have and the unlimited wants. So, as humans, our desires for goods, services are like limitless and boundless, but the four economic resources, capital, enterprise, land, and labor, are scarce, and therefore we face constant choices and trade offs. Um, so, with that, the economic problem it forces us to make the best use of what we have whilst like acknowledging the opportunities we let go of, which is understood to be the opportunity cost. So
Okay.
the the opportunity cost, which is a very fun, very like core term to economics, which is the next best alternative for gone when making a decision, is when you choose to allocate resources to one place, due to the scarcity of them, you lose out on like acquiring another good or service, or because of the limited resources. So
So
an example of
is
go
it
on.
kind of like how you know I can either choose sleep or play on my PlayStation? So like
Um,
I may play on my PlayStation, but then I also lose on sleep. Is that
well,
is that what you,
yeah, exactly that. Because I believe another key thing to understanding economics is a lot of people have the misconception that economics is a study of finance and money, but it's a study of
okay?
resources, and time is a resource. So
Okay, interesting.
you're allocating your time towards, let's say you chose to sleep now, you've
Yeah.
allocated that time to sleep rather than to
Okay.
play PS. And by if you consider playing on your PlayStation the next best alternative,
Yeah.
then you've lost out on playing on your PlayStation because the resources are limited and you've allocated it to sleep.
Okay. That's a good explanation.
Thank you. So from that, then, if as I've mentioned, that the economic problem is at the end of the day what economists try to solve. Like, Daniel, could you tell me about like different like systems that aim to like try and solve the economic problem?
You know, I'll be happy to. Like you said before, we have unlimited wants, but there are only limited resources. So what economists try to do to solve the economic problems by having economic systems in place to try and get those resources to fulfill the needs of society as a whole, right? So
Okay.
with the two main economic systems, you have your command economy or planned economy, as some people call it, and your free market economy. I'm going to talk about command economy first. So basically, what the command economy is where the central government dictates how all goods and services are used and dictates what gets produced, whom it gets produced to, and all other economic decisions throughout the whole economy, pretty much, right? So in those type of command economies, things like monopolies, right? Things like monopolies where there's one firm that dominates the market, that holds a majority of the market share, are very common because usually that firm is going to be owned by the government themselves. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of public ownership of major industries. So, like how in the UK we have healthcare is mostly owned by the UK government with the NHS, right? In those command economies, things like healthcare, education, roads, internet, broadbands, cars, all sorts of industries, right? That are usually
Mm-hmm.
what we're used to in the free market. They would be owned by the government, and the government would determine what would get produced, pretty much.
Wait, so how easy would it be for me to enter a planned economy and, create my own firm?
And create your own firm. That
And
is a good question.
mhm.
Long story short, it'll be difficult. It'll be very difficult because the
Okay.
whole point of the command economy is that it's command, it's planned. The
Hmm.
government are the one that controls everything, and it's
Yeah.
not as easy to set up because there's going to be many barriers to entry. You're going to need probably a lot of permits and all
Hmm.
sorts of paperwork, money start, and all that to even try and get started. So for the average person trying to own like a firm in a command or start up a firm in a command economy isn't gonna work out most of the time. However, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work out, right? Because in cases like China, which is a pretty well known command economy, right? They have loosened up on how strict they are with how much they control the economy. As in the past, I think about 10 to 20 years, they've allowed other firms to enter the markets, allowed more, yeah, just more firms to enter the market. Use their profit motive to create
Okay.
more high quality goods and services and whatnot to try and boost the economy. So even though it's mainly a command economy, there are still a few firms not controlled by the government that still
Yeah.
operate there and are still profitable.
Okay. So pretty difficult, basically.
Very
Um.
difficult.
So, from what I understand, it seems very authoritative. The government
Hmm.
is literally deciding how to produce goods and services, what to produce, and whom is to actually benefit from the produce. So, what
Hmm.
exactly is the incentive of the government to actually create an economy to solve the economic problem this way? Because it's not really creating a profit motive for
Hmm.
entrepreneurs to take risks and create businesses that will in the end benefit the economy. So, what exactly is the incentive?
I'll say in this case, the incentive is going to be on the concept of welfare, right? To even
Okay.
use opportunity cost as well. From using this economic system, the opportunity cost is sacrificing profits to maximize social welfare. And what
Okay.
that
Yeah.
social welfare is just how well, like the average person, right? The average Joe
Mhm.
can live that life. So in a command economy, like I said, a lot of major industries are owned by the government.
Yeah.
And due to them being owned by the government, they're usually going to be provided for free to all people living in there,
Hmm.
due to the government providing it themselves through taxes, right?
Yeah.
So for the average person, they wouldn't have to worry about things like, oh yeah, what school should they send their child to? What school did they even want to go to? And whether they can afford the what's it called school fees. They won't have to
Yeah.
worry about healthcare because that's going to be mainly provided by the government. They won't have to worry about like that health insurance. Probably wouldn't even have to worry about what car they're going to get, car insurance, all sorts of things. So a lot of that worry and a lot of that burden is alleviated from the average person, which could lead to national happiness even increasing in some cases. With happiness even being another branch of studies in economics, and seen
Yeah.
how happiness does contribute to welfare as well as all other metrics such as life expectancy, literacy rate, and the sort. Right.
Okay.
So overall, for what you sacrifice in profits in a common economy, you should be gaining more in social welfare and overall, like stress levels decreasing due to not having to worry as much. However, that's only mainly theoretical because in most command economies, it is sad to say, but a lot of them are totalitarian in that regime,
Okay.
Oh
with
yeah.
one man or one party standing at the top, completely dominating everything else. And those parties usually tend to be corrupt and tend to not think about what's best for society and only what's best for them.
Okay.
So I'd like to. So obviously, Karl Marx being like the kind of main thinker behind planned economies, like
Mhm.
so. Would you say that the whole like totalitarian concept is the reason why like the actual realization of Marx's plan of like a communist planned society is the sole reason why it's not been achieved in its purest form? Because you could argue that like some economies that attempt like planned a more plan based economy have like some benefits to them.
Well, sorry, Daniel. If
I'll just like to give my answer. I feel
okay.
like with Karl Marx, his whole premise behind his like kind of communist system, right, and socialism, is that there will be a kind of dictator, right, someone who's going to control everything, and what's it called, control the economy and all the decisions as a whole. However, the whole premise behind this dictator is that that's supposed to be a kind of fair dictator. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to be doing it for personal gain and be doing it solely for the benefit of society. However, like you said before, with the economic problem, there's unlimited wants, and due to human nature, this kind of perfect dictator, this kind of completely fair dictator, is most likely never going to exist
Mm-hmm.
because greed is just going to fester up and build up. And
Yeah.
even if they do start off trying to do it for the best of their country, they might fall to schemes and be replaced by another more power hungry dictator, or they themselves get corrupted over time. So usually it doesn't tend to work out in the sense of maximizing welfare. But I say that's more so due to human greed and not that the economic system as a purely economic system doesn't work well.
Yeah. Like just to add, like, of course, this is a very theoretical extreme. Like, there isn't a complete command economy within the world. I guess the closest to that would be North Korea. Um, and I feel like Karl Marx's objective, if you look at his book, Das Kapital, essentially illustrates the idea that the proletariat or the workers rise up against the homeowners, and homeowners were created within a capitalist system, right? Whether due to greed and profit incentive, house prices skyrocket, leading to a lot of inequality within society. So essentially, the book is trying to illustrate the revolution of the workers against these homeowners, and then reinstating an equal state, essentially. And depending on your philosophical perspective, there would have to be some type of authoritarian leader in order to, you know, keep the human greed in check for it not to go back into that capitalist state, which I think is what Karl Marx is trying to teach. So I feel like, as a theoretical extreme, in theory, technically, if we had this perfect leader, then yeah, it would technically work. But you know, human nature, in my opinion, would just not allow it to happen. Like, it would just
Mhm.
not work, as seen by previous history.
And, so then, segueing from that, we have the other side or the other economic structure, pretty much the exact opposite of the command economy, most known as the free market economy, right? And I'll say most third world countries, right, the US, UK, France, most of these countries do operate based on this free market economy, right? So obviously
Yeah,
the
free
idea
market.
of hmm?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. But yeah, so the idea of this free market economy this economic system structure came from came from Adam Smith, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically just, instead of allowing the government to decide how resources get allocated, right, just let the mechanisms of demand and supply themselves dictate what gets produced, how much of it gets produced, and to whom it gets produced to.
Okay,
right?
Daniel. Like, could you please explain, like, because I've heard of the term the invisible hand. Like, how does the price mechanism or whatever the invisible hand distribute these resources within a free market economy?
Mhm. So let's say that trying to think of the best way to explain this, right? But let's say for whatever reason, well, at a market equilibrium, right? Pretty much what a market equilibrium is basically when total demand is equal to total supply, right? So the amount of people demanding a certain good or service is the exact amount that's being supplied by firms, right? So we have this equilibrium.
Yeah.
Let's say that the price of this good, let's say the price of ice creams, right? They increase due to what's it called, external factors such as temperature getting hotter. It's summer, people just want ice cream in general because it's hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the price of ice creams increase. This will send signals to economic agents, right? The economic agents, producers and consumers, right?
Yeah.
Will send signals to them to dictate what their next economic action is going to be. So for consumers, since prices increase, it's going to cost them more to buy the ice cream they want, right? So this
Yeah.
is going to decrease the people who are willing and able to buy that ice cream at that price. So then demand would contract, right?
Wait, so is
However,
the signal in that case like to the producer that they don't have as long of lines when it comes to the ice cream vans, or is that an example of a signal within the price mechanism?
I would. I don't think it would go that far, person. I feel the signal is, oh yeah, since this is more expensive, I may not be able to afford it. Let me, instead of using my money to buy this, let me maybe try and get a substitute, like maybe an ice lolly instead of getting ice cream, because the ice cream
Oh,
is just.
okay. So this is the signal to the consumer, right?
That would be the signal
Okay,
to the
okay,
consumer.
okay.
And then for the producer, they've seen that the price of ice cream increased, and since they're the ones that are producing and selling the ice cream,
Yeah.
they're going to be more incentivized to produce and sell more because they're just going to earn more revenue, which would lead to more profits. So then they would increase production of what's it called, of ice creams, and this will keep on happening until a new equilibrium is met. And that's what the invisible hand is. The invisible hand is basically what's it called, the price mechanism shifting the economic agents into certain decisions.
Wait, so if the price is increased and the
Mhm,
consumer is going to other substitutes, right?
mhm,
So demand has decreased, right?
mhm.
Why would the producer produce more?
Because they're still going to earn more profit from the people who can buy it. Just
Okay.
because demand has decreased doesn't mean that everyone's stopped buying it in general. It just means that there's going to be less people willing and able to buy it. But there's still going to be people who have maybe just access, like a vast amount of wealth, or just they can really afford it, or just people that really, really like ice cream and will buy it no matter the cost, right?
Okay.
So producers are still incentivized to sell more.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, like, so what
Wait,
exactly? I mean, I'm sure. Wait, what were you gonna say, Faiz?
no, I think that's where you like introduce the concept of like consumer surplus and producer surplus.
Wait, wait, wait,
So
wait, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute. I don't know about that one yet. I don't know if they're ready for that one.
okay,
Um,
Derek, we'll save that for another
yeah,
episode.
we'll
We'll
save
save
that
that
for
for
another
another
one. So, but
episode.
I think we
Yeah,
should
no.
look at the medium between a free market and
Or
a
can I finish
Oh, sorry.
before
What?
thing
Will
on
you
the
say
free market?
something?
No, just like the what's it called, cost and benefits of it, right? As a
Oh,
whole.
of free market.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh snap. Oh snap.
No, it's fine. Oh, but yeah, the reason why one of the benefits for the free market economic system, right, is that goods and services tend to be of a higher quality, and there tends to be a greater range of goods and services for consumers to choose from due
Hmm.
to due to high competition within
Yeah.
a free market. Since there isn't any central government that is making decisions to like stop economic transactions from happening and banning certain like firms from entering the market. There are low barriers to entry, so lots of firms can enter the market, right? Which will
Mm-hmm.
create high competition. And obviously, for firms to stand out more, need to make that they even need to lower their prices to be more enticing for consumers, right?
Yeah.
Or they need to increase the quality of their goods and services to entice consumers that way. So this just creates, it usually creates a better system for consumers that they get to benefit from lower prices for their goods and services, higher quality for their goods and services, more choice for them. And then the benefits for producers is that obviously there's just a high profit margin
Wait.
available to them.
Okay, so I understand the benefits. So, like, what happens if, unfortunately, of course, there's going to be people that are born into like this deprivation cycle where, they may not be able to exactly afford certain things within the market. How exactly would the free market necessarily appeal to that? And of course, that will cause large inequalities within society.
I would say that is one of the drawbacks to the free market, right?
Okay.
That it does create a lot of inequality due to the rich getting richer, due to
Yeah.
access to like resources,
Yeah.
better education, healthcare, and all sorts of things, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
poor get poorer because they can't kind of escape that poverty cycle,
Yeah.
right? So
Okay.
that is one of the drawbacks. But like some economists would argue that what's it called, the free market would kind of regulate itself in that
Mm-hmm.
aspect where
Yeah.
like what's it called, schools, right? Let's say universities, for example.
Yeah.
Let's say at first they make everyone have to pay to get in, right?
Okay.
But maybe eventually to like try and stand out to maybe get better students to come over to the university so they can get what's called a high reputation. Maybe that what's it called, if they get smart students, they can get like the next Isaac Newton, the next Einstein, right? And which would really increase the prestige of the university and eventually will make them more profits because universities at the end of the day they're still firms, right?
They're a business,
So
yeah.
maybe what these universities might do is that maybe they might open up scholarships, right? Just pretty much paying for the whole course for themselves, but only open these scholarships up to very talented and bright individuals who may not have the necessary financial also got needs to just pay off their school loans. So what these economists would argue is that whilst things may seem dire now, eventually the market would correct itself to the social offering due to the invisible hand, and firms seeing what's called gaps in the market that they can try and exploit.
I
Wait.
mean,
Um.
yes. Sorry.
Yeah. But another issue that I'd like to pick up on though with that is like how would you correct like some externalities that occur due to the free market? For example, like if the free market has the whole concept of like the market forces like providing a socially optimum level of output. With these like unchecked forces, they can lead to like a concentration of economic power into like a few dominant firms, which is known or like a one single dominant firm, which is known as a monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
And this monopoly can now abuse their market power and limit competition, which the whole idea of the free market is to like stimulate competition to bring about innovation and things like that. So how does how would you go about like solving that? Because monopolies do not like maximize the welfare of society, which is something that is key to economics.
Mm-hmm. So one answer I can give you, right, is the real life application of these free markets, right? Is that they're not entirely free markets, like to the purest sense of the definition, and that there's still government intervention. So in that way, right, in real life, the government would usually intervene to try and prevent a monopoly from like occurring or like just one super dominant firm. Like there'll still be dominant firms in the market, right? But not one that's super dominant. Like I think an example of this is in UK law. Right, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think by law, firms aren't allowed to have over. I think it's either 30% or 35% of total market share, right?
I
And
didn't
this
even
is
know
seen,
that.
yeah, and this is seen in what's it called, the supermarket industry, right? But I think at one point, Asda and Morrison's tried to merge, right? However, the government intervened and stopped them because if they did merge, they would have over
Fairs.
5% market share, right? Because I think at that point, like Morrison had something like 17%, Asda had like 15%, or I think maybe the percentages might be higher. But if they merged, it have even a higher market share than Tesco, which was around 30%. So the government intervened to stop that.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and just to add, like, if you look at Adam Smith, um, in his book, The Wealth of Nations. He obviously promoted the free market economy, but he also mentioned that the government still has a function, and that should be to create a framework to mitigate any negative externalities created from free market economy. So technically, in the purest sense, as Daniel has said, I it is a theoretical extreme, and there will have to be some kind of ways in order to mitigate those externalities.
Yeah, no, because even like if you to take it as a theoretical extreme that it is, right,
Yeah,
a purely free market where there's no government intervention, right?
yeah,
It's instead of it just being purely economic decisions involving money, there's going to be use of violence and just illegal activity to what's it called gain resources, right?
mm-hmm,
If there's government intervention and like obviously like police stopping crimes and all that, you're gonna see a lot of the times where like let's say you buy something, someone might see that you bought something and they'll just take it off you because they're bigger and stronger than you. So obviously, in
yeah,
our purely free, um, purely free market, right?
yeah.
The weaker would get exploited by those who are more physically dominant or more financially dominant than
Mm-hmm.
others.
Yeah, and like we can see that free market economies, like free market economics in general, may not necessarily work. We can even look at the current political climate in the UK. We can look at the current Conservative government. I mean, we all know what happened last September with the mini budget, um, Quarting and Truss's mini budget, where it was seen as a very had very neoliberal policies, such as eradicating the 45% tax bracket, because they were trying to promote their idea of trickle down economics, where, they believe that we should conserve the wealth within the wealthier people within society, and this will create higher profit motive slash incentives to create businesses and create jobs for the, more working class people, which will, try and mitigate that inequality. However, as you can see, because of the mini budget, that's not what happened at all. It just added to the cost of living crisis. The pound plummeted, and it's just not necessarily going to work. However, we can also look on another, uh, branch of history where free market economics definitely did work. If we look at Thatcher's era, you know, she's the one that kind of promoted the new right neoliberal policies. Within, such as more privatization within the economy, um, and just reduction in trade union power. And you know g- before her, there was a lot of economic downturn within the UK, and she's seen as someone that definitely increased the economic performance of the UK at the time. So that's just another example of where free market economics would work. So there's two sides to the same coin, to be honest. But I feel like this is a nice segue into what is actually the medium between both theoretical extremes, between you
Mhm.
know free market and a command economy.
Yeah, and the medium is just a mixed economy, and like the name suggests, it's literally just a mix of the two other economic systems,
Yeah.
where the government will still intervene in the what's called economy at times. Like for example, in the UK, they will intervene to like stop monopolies, try and reduce negative externalities, and still like what's it called give government provision with stuff like the NHS, fixing roads and all that. However, there's still what's it called free markets in industries such as car manufacturing, clothes, food, and all that, where you can still sell firms. Even as like the average person, you can still set up a firm and be successful, right? So yeah, and most I'll say all firms are a type of mixed economy, right? It's just that they are on a spectrum of how far left. Like, let's say the furthest left you can go is the free market economy, and the furthest right you can go is the command economy. Or every country falls in line on one on this spectrum. It just depends how far along they are.
Okay, it's pretty interesting. So yeah, it's literally just a medium between both theoretical extremes, and is seen as you know it is literally the economy in every country. It's just depending on how far you are left or right on the spectrum. So
So
I feel
wait,
like, sorry, what were you gonna say?
no, I was just gonna say. So with all of that information that Daniel was giving us and we've discussed now, um, to you guys, and then I'll give my idea after you guys. What is the best
All right.
economic system to solve the economic problem?
It's
So does anyone
interesting.
want to go first?
I
Um,
mean, what? Like, who's trying to go first?
Uche, start us off. Start us off.
You want to?
Start,
Okay,
start, start,
I'll
start.
start us off. So to be honest, I'm gonna go towards more free market economics. Like, I feel like more across that spectrum is definitely a lot better for society because in my own perspective, I feel like you know with free market economics, it creates innovation, right? It creates and promotes innovation for goods and services. And not just that, but entire industries. If we didn't have the incentive to create goods and services and better goods and services for consumers, then there would be no way of humans developing and, just progressing further as a species. And I feel like that's literally what we're all about, innovation, right? For example, if we look at the Industrial Revolution, where there was a mass surge in the production of goods and services through higher quality of capital, right? And through this, because of all the profits made, there was more profit incentive to progress. For example, the medicinal industry, and that's just an example of where if free market economics wasn't put into work, we wouldn't necessarily have that type of progression within society. And I feel like it is definitely required because in my own perspective, humans are rationals. We use logic to make our own choices. And if we have something like, I don't know, an authoritarian leader that inhibits on our rationality, we're not necessarily going to put it to the best use, which I think should be to develop as a society. Whereas if you look at a command economy, right, it's just not going to work in my opinion because there's no incentive to create these goods and services. Like, let's say you had a doctor and I don't know, a plumber, right? So there's a lot of skill put into plumbing, and there's a lot of skill put into being a doctor. However, there's going to have to be some type of wage differences or academic differences in which would allow for a plumber to be the best in their situation because they're getting paid more for being a better plumber. And also, a doctor isn't going to want to be paid the same as a job that requires even less skill because then they have no incentive to work as hard as they can.
Uche.
Which is sorry, what were you going to say?
No, just sorry to buy in, but if we stick like that's the thing with economics, it has like basic like facets in psychology. But if we stick it to pure economics, if the doctor is getting paid the same as a plumber, but they're both receiving benefits such as healthcare, housing, and all these benefits that they need and that they want, why does pay matter?
Sorry, just to clarify, I will go on to that, but I was trying to say that I'm not trying to say that the plumber and the doc. I just gave two examples of jobs, right? So I'm not saying they should
Okay, yeah.
get paid the same. I'm saying a better plumber would get paid and get more customers than a less skilled plumber. So higher skills should garner
Oh, okay,
more
all right.
profit. And the same with a doctor. Whereas a doctor, for example, they're not gonna want to get paid the same as a job that requires a lot less skill because they have that incentive to gather that skill to be a doctor, and thus they require the uh, money. They require the amount of money needed, which is kind of why we've had so many strikes with the NHS. But to answer your question, right, about if they were to have the same benefits, I mean, the government doesn't have unlimited money, right? Of course, they're gonna have free well healthcare, you know, all those equal benefits, but there needs to be. I feel like, in my perspective, there needs to be some type of inequality within society for there to be an incentive to do certain things, right? To be a doctor, for example, of course you're gonna have passion, but if you're not being compensated enough in order to put enough effort into being a doctor, why would you why would the logical solution to why would the logical solution, if you think about it for yourself, yeah, would you be a doctor if you were paid a lot less than you think you should be paid? Like there is no incentive to
Well,
do that, to gather those
Well,
skills. Of course
sorry.
you're
Uche,
gonna have the incentive to sorry, of course you're gonna have the incentive because you want to save people's lives, etc. But
yeah,
not everyone is gonna be like that. Some
yeah, I
people
understand
purely
that.
just believe in money. Like that's it.
No, but what I'm saying here now is, so if you're people set out to be a doctor, and let's
Right.
say they're more driven by money because obviously you in their heads you're more skilled, you deserve a higher wage. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but you wouldn't necessarily need that higher wage if everything you need is coming from the government. So why wouldn't you take the same pay as a plumber? Where because you know that you and the plumber are both being taken care of. People need higher wages because they need to tailor to their tailor to their wants and needs. But if the government are already doing that for you, what is the what's the need for a higher wage?
Yeah, definitely a good point. But as I've said before, the government doesn't have unlimited money. And as if we literally go back to the original core problem, the basic economic problem, we have unlimited wants but finite resources, right? The
Yeah,
government has
very true,
finite
very
amount
very
of
true.
money. They're not going to be able to they're not going to be anywhere close to the amount of wants that a certain individual would want. Of course, they're going to
No,
cater to some and probably all of the needs, but some people are just going to have a lot more wants than other people,
very
will
true.
have in order to gain that incentive, the incentive is in order to fulfill more wants, and therefore they'll gather up the skills to do more higher skilled jobs, right? However,
Mm.
if the government is only providing for your needs and not for your wants, right, what's the point of going for that extra mile and putting in that extra effort for a higher skilled job when you're not even going to reap the benefits of it, if that makes sense?
No, but also go Uche. For that, I feel like sometimes, especially with some jobs, right, people don't necessarily go into it purely for the money. Like even a lot of doctors, also called, don't become doctors because they want to earn lots and lots of money. Most of them become doctors because they're either interested in medicine as a whole or just want to save lives. So with that kind of job, I wouldn't say it's the best example to give, right? And then even going back to Faisal's point of why would you want more money if you're mostly going to be taken care of, right? Yes, you said the government doesn't have unlimited money, so they can't satisfy all your wants, right? But at the very least, they should be able to satisfy your basic needs like housing, food, electricity, and all that, right? And then the extra money that you do have, you can still spend that on your wants, right? And like, whilst you may not be able to get every single want you have, you should be able to live very comfortably and have ease of mind. You should be relatively happy. You can spend time with friends and family and all that. And I feel like that aspect of economics, that it is an aspect of economics, happiness, ethics, culture, and all that is an aspect of economics, and it isn't just um, purely money based, right? Because in a free market
Wait, so are
economy,
you
I feel like
disagreeing or agreeing with his point, with his objection then?
I'm, I'm just I'm just bringing an extra like idea
Yeah,
into it.
Okay,
yeah,
Because
fair
no,
enough.
personally, I believe like a more free market approach is better. Because I stand from the standpoint of a consumer that just wants all these different choices, right? That's my personal view on
yeah,
it. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that I can see the other side, especially when it comes to things like stress. Because in, I'll say, more free market economies, especially in like some industries like the finance industry, there's a lot of stress. With a lot of people working overtime to meet nearly impossible deadlines. Some people are even sleeping at what's it called, at firms and offices. They don't even come back home for days, even weeks sometimes. And like, I just don't know if that environment necessarily fulfills your mental needs and your
Yeah.
mental.
No, that's actually a really good point. That's a good point. Like to put my own perspective on it, right? Yeah, like I've definitely acknowledged that economics, in terms of the economic systems, of course, it's not all about money, right? Maybe doctor wasn't the best example, but just any high school job, right? Of course, there's gonna be some type of moral incentive as well, but of course,
yeah.
money, profit incentive, that's always gonna be a huge part of it, right? But in terms of the example used for the financial industry, it is your choice whether or not you want to uphold that amount of stress. Because if you look at it, right, no one's forcing you to go into a high pressure environment, right? The reason why a lot of people go into those type of high pressure environments is because of money incentive, right? I mean, yeah, of course, a command economy may, in theory, decrease your stress levels because you're provided with everything. But I personally disagree with the fact that everyone should be given a set amount of resources. Of course, it's going to cover your needs, but if it's inhibiting on my liberty to do things, and we may look at in further episodes about the political ideology of you know uh, liberty, right? Um,
Mhm.
like if it inhibits my choice to do certain things, like I don't think I'd be happy in that situation, to be honest, especially if I'm working a lot harder than other people, but we're getting the exact same things, right? And that's
Mhm.
why I feel like there won't there will be an extreme shortage of high school jobs, because I just can't see why rationally you would decide to do those jobs, especially if they only reap monetary gain.
Mhm.
Fair enough.
Well, on that point, right, you talked about how it's your choice into going to a high stressing job and all of that, right? However, in a free market economy, right, especially if it's more like capitalist, like the US, where a lot of almost nothing is provided, right? And you have to provide a lot for yourself, such as healthcare and all that, right? That obviously costs a lot of money, right? Especially if you want to maintain a decently good lifestyle, have maybe a gym membership, you want to pay for a Spotify, things like that. That's all gonna cost money, as well as just even cost of living just increasing day by day with what's called resources decreasing, right? So whilst you might say, oh yeah, you have a choice into going that, sometimes you don't really have a choice. That what's it called? You want to get that high paying job so you can have more security in your life, because you know that what's it called? Maybe one day inflation just gonna skyrocket, or cost of living is just gonna really increase. And now that high paying job is what's keeping you afloat. So whilst you are going into a highly stressful job, sometimes it might not be purely because you want to do it, or that you can go to another job. Because let's say you don't go into that very lucrative industry like the finance industry, and you do something else that's less stress. You
Hmm.
might get less money, and now instead of you being stressed about your job, you're now stressed about what am I going to eat tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a very great point, to be honest. Yeah, and that's exactly
Brilliant point.
why,
Brilliant
exactly,
point.
and that's exactly why I'm not on the complete like let's say economic right. I'm not saying that it should be a purely free market economy, as in I feel like there should be multiple frameworks put into place in order to create comfortability, almost a safety net
Safety,
to
yeah.
mitigate absolute poverty, which we can see in the UK. So yeah, that's an amazing point, I'll be wrong, but yeah, I mean, like, if you're an A level student and you did, GCSE, of course you did GCSE English Lit, we can literally look at, the Animal Farm book and how that
Uh,
kind of
really interesting book,
Yeah,
I
literally,
recommend it.
very interesting.
we can literally see how communism in that sense, or like a planned economy, pretty much fails. But
Fails. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, that's just my perspective on it, to be honest. I mean, does anyone like have any good points to like for a more planned economy? I mean, I know Daniel has said quite a lot, to be fair.
Let me have this.
No, I'll just like to say something just in general, not really about a planned economy.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, no, I'll say with economics, a lot of the things that we do talk about and we do discuss, there's not one definitive answer. There's
Yeah,
not
Yeah.
one straight up, oh yeah, I can solve the economic problem with this, and this is the best way to do it.
exactly.
Is a lot of it is perspective and just personal preference and what you feel aligns with your moral values and your rationality and your way of thinking more. And that's why I really like economics as a whole, because you get to see all these different perspectives, you get to see all these different arguments, and like sometimes I might not even see the point of an argument until someone really explains it to me, and then I'm just like,
Exactly.
wow, that really makes sense
Exactly.
to me, and even sometimes changes my
Yeah.
perspective on different things. So yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Um.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just wanted to answer your question regarding like having to think and trying to look at what are some benefit. Well, you said benefits to like a planned economy, right?
Yeah, why would that be seen? Like, what are some points as to why it could be the best?
Well, I feel like one good argument to I take a more mixed economic approach, but to play like devil's advocate, one benefit to a more planned approach is like it helps to eliminate like the market instabilities and that whole idea of a boom bust cycle. Because in a planned economy, the government can mitigate the fluctuations of business cycles since
Wait, before
production
you
and
carry on, could you please explain, like, because obviously some people may not know what the business cycle is.
yeah, that's fine. So the business cycle is the idea where the economy goes through different stages, it goes through different natural fluctuations. So there's a boom where there's lots of economic prosperity, employment is high, incomes are high, people are doing well. Then you have recessions where, or like, or you have recessions or busts where the economy is failing, unemployment is high, the economy is just not doing well as a whole. It's not thriving, and then there's fluctuations in between.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as I was saying, going back to what I was saying, since production, investment decisions, and decisions that contribute towards the economic cycle are made by the government, by one central power, like the controlling of like the allocation of resources can help to mitigate the fluctuation of that cycle, because the government can now, like, for example, if there's a period of time where incomes are high and people are buying a lot and stuff like that, then that will contribute towards a boost. But so like a boom, sorry. But in a situation whereby the government control that, it kind of like levels out because people are limited to what they can buy, or there's only a certain amount they can buy. They can't start. The demand won't rise because there's no new equilibrium to make when the government have fixed it at one point.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, to be honest.
And I'll say another point
Yeah.
for command economy, like maybe not so much monetary, but like when it comes to things like national defense, police, or just responding to national crises like the coronavirus, right, and other external shocks, a current economic system would be better in responding to that, because obviously the government does control. First of all, the government is in complete control of the political power and all economic decisions, so they can pass down laws and different policies that will, what's it called, pretty much be enacted immediately to how much power they have over the economy.
Yep.
So, like, what's it called? With, like, let's say the coronavirus, maybe in a command economy, there wouldn't be as many victims. Like people catching it and or dying to it as maybe a free market economy where it's a little bit more chaotic.
Yeah, exactly. Like we can literally see how there are multiple pros and cons of each type of economy, and how they solve the basic economic problem. And I mean, you can already see like the different links with the political sense. If we look at the actual type of government that has to create order within each type of economic system, and even the philosophical sense in terms of why
Capitalism, communism,
exactly why a certain why a certain economic system would be better,
even the ethics as well.
Exactly,
like
ethics as well.
Looking at people.
So I feel like that kind of brings us to the end of the episode. What did you guys think? I thought that was a pretty good episode, personally.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that. So yeah, like if you're watching, please like and subscribe, and help us out, man. But
just share with friends. Anything.
Yeah, and leave a comment if you have any questions.
Any questions, any point of discussion, just drop a comment.
Anything interesting you want to bring up that you think would be good for our next topic. And I think for our next topic, then we agree on like philosophy.
Something philosophical based.
Yeah. So thanks for watching.
Stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Bye.
Stay tuned for that.